You're watching Valley Vision TV on Comcast Channel 7.
This is News Guardian. With Greg Aldridge and Chip Tarbun on WFJX Fox Radio 910.
Good morning.
Good morning. We have to talk to the station.
Why?
Because we're trying to hide our identity. We got to do a better job if we're going to... Every time we come back from a break, they say our names on the promo.
Yeah, we can't have Blair blabbing our names and stay incognito, can we?
I know. Well, the reason we're saying that... Good morning. This is News Guardian Chip with my co-host and... I don't know what else to describe you as, Greg Aldridge. And we're talking about, if you read yesterday's Roanoke Times, the local section, or state section actually, you would have seen an article from commentator / quasi-journalist Dan Casey about us. We were in the paper. I mean, a lot of people work hard to get excited when you see your name in print.
Well, and if you didn't read it, then we're going to share it with you so you don't have to read it. We'll read it for you.
It was painful. I mean...
Was it that much in pain?
Well... we're to dissect. Part of what we do here in News Guardians is look at local, state, and national media and point out the bias that it is not only sometimes subtly in there, but it's there's almost an overwhelming bias, an overwhelming amount of misinformation that's going out to the folks these days. And you hear about that a lot when you listen to national shows, but no one's really deconstructing the local and state pieces. And we're going to be spending a lot more time doing that. And Dan Casey is a great example of this sort of media bias meme that we talk about.
Sorry, I'm distracted by the fact that I no longer can find the article by Dan Casey on his blog.
Yeah, I never saw it on there. Actually, I had to spend $1.05 yesterday to get a hard copy of it.
So he printed it in the paper but didn't put it on the website?
I don't know.
Is he trying to hide the story on the website?
I'm sure it's just a snafu.
Did you bring the paper today?
I have it. I have it I have it right here.
Break
Greg.
that bad boy
I will hand it to you. So
right.
You'll hear some rattling of paper in a second. So what are some problems with... we'll talk about Dan Casey. We also have some other stories because, we want to make it all about us.
Yeah, an article was published that basically is a top 10 list of lies, abuses, and journalistic fraud by NBC, which we link to on our website. We're going to talk about that today. Do we have sports?
Oh, yes, of course. And last week I was 3 out of 4 on my NFL picks, and... hopefully I can reproduce that this week, so I'll be giving you the game, some picks, and information on the Redskins' new football coach.
We have a coach now.
Okay.
Now,
glad you. When did you get on the payroll of the Washington Redskins?
I have been a fan since I was old enough to say the word.
All right, well, we'll talk about your coach.
I've been financing it by purchasing NFL licensed merchandise with Redskins logos. We made the front page of the Virginia section with this story yesterday. The the headline it starts off bad. He doesn't wait till down in the middle of the story to blow it. He decided to blow it right up front with the headline, "Criticize media, but own up to it." Hello, Dan. We're on the radio saying our names. Blair said our names. Our pictures are on the... I don't know how.
Well, I think he's only talking about the website. And
our picture's on the website.
Well, I understand that. But the
There's a video of you sitting next to Sam Razul on the website, which he viewed. I checked. I checked the IPs. So I'm confused. Anyway, that's the headline.
Well, he managed to find us and ask us the questions. I think he was just frustrated because I didn't answer all of his questions because a lot of his questions were just ridiculous.
I'm sorry, but when I get up in the morning, the list of things that my creator gave me as responsibilities in my life does not contain answer Dan Casey's questions. It's just not there.
Well, so if you go out to our website today, you can. I think I'll email Dan a copy of a link to the article so he can look at it. I'm sure he'll find it entertaining.
Well, it says in here that he talks about us and another gentleman. who is an acquaintance of his, Lars Hagen, or Hagen, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, who does a compiled day-to-day record of what he considers proof of bias and misreporting in the Roanoke Times. So he starts off comparing us to that guy.
Well, first of all, Dan, don't flatter yourself, because we're not, obviously living in Roanoke. The Roanoke Times is probably the biggest purveyor of media bias in our market, but you're not alone.
Oh no, it's prevalent everywhere, which is why we're here. And honestly, another reason why not to flatter yourself, Dan, or the Roanoke Times, is we didn't choose you because you're so important. It's just you make it so easy. And
you don't have to work too hard. I know you understand not working too hard to get your pay, so we know you understand that. So you'll appreciate that sort of thing.
Oh wow. So anyway, you can't read the article unless you buy the paper.
You can read like the first part of it online, but he never, and as far as we can tell, he's never posted the other part.
It'll probably get posted now that we've brought it to his attention.
Yeah, so way to go. So the other thing that's interesting is that, we don't look at it, as we talk about this, he says you're biased. How can you trust these Tea Party / conservative guys with monitoring media bias when they're biased? And our answer to that is, and we've talked about this numerous times on the radio, is
that everybody's biased. The difference is we admit it.
Exactly.
The difference is the Roanoke Times doesn't cop to it when they choose a giant flattering picture to put on the front page above the fold of their chosen candidate, and then a tiny picture of the opposition at the bottom of the page.
Now, if you go to the News Guardian's website and look at the article on Dan Casey, that is the picture we chose to put on there. It's a picture of Sam Rasool running down the street, and the headline is "A Dash to the Finish." So one candidate has a picture on the front page of the paper above the folds. When it's folded in the little newsstand, you can see the picture. The only thing you see is a flattering picture of Sam Rasool running down the street. His opponent, Octavia Johnson, is a little tiny picture on the bottom of the page, way down below it. It's not a bad picture of her, but it's certainly not this, flattering. Now, you could either say, maybe they just did it because it was a nice picture. They didn't have any, intentions to be biased. So you're saying that the Roanoke Times editorial staff was so dumb to realize that this picture wouldn't be helpful to Sam Rasool. It was just done that way because it looked good.
And let's be clear about something here. We're not criticizing them for having done it. We're criticizing them for not being honest about what it is they're doing. I don't care if the newspaper becomes, the Roanoke Times becomes the leading foremost cheerleader for socialist, leftist, Democrat, liberal policy. And they, that's fine. It's fine for them to report the news from that perspective. It's fine to do any of that. What's not fine is not to admit that that's what you're doing and try to cloud all of that under the guise of unbiased factual journalism, which is clearly not the case. If you're going to be an advocate, be an advocate. Be the best advocate you can, whether it's you're advocating for something good or bad. So what? But be honest about it.
Well, I think the funny part about this, too, is that we wrote an assessment of this campaign between Sam Rasool and Octavia Johnson. And even though we're biased, because we don't like Sam Rasool's positions, we interviewed Sam, and I thought we were fair to him. I mean, we asked him questions he probably wouldn't have gotten asked by other media outlets, but that's because we have a different perspective on things. But we criticized Octavia Johnson for several things and would have asked her questions if she was granting any media requests.
Chip, don't you know that it's just because we're so wacky and far out, we can't even get with the Republican program. We're so nutty. I'm sorry, but I'm just not buying all that. The point here is,
you're not buying what I'm saying?
Just be honest.
Well, this is very true. I mean, it's, when we were talking to the owner of the station about the show, he's like, well, we don't want your commentary to be biased. I'm like, well, commentary is intrinsically biased.
Well, no, what he said, he asked if we were going to be unbiased, and my answer was no. It's impossible.
Commentary is intrinsically biased.
Well, news is intrinsically biased.
Yes.
I mean, even if it's...
You can make an attempt to try to show both sides of a story, but you're going to almost... It is very difficult to show a story in a way that completely takes your bias out of it.
Your viewpoint, ideology, background, experience, everything comes into play when no matter how hard you're trying to stick to the facts and to be fair and balanced, you can do the best you can, but you cannot remove the subjective from it because that's what you are.
But there's more. There's so much more of this. We could spend 2 hours deconstructing this silly article.
Oh, let's don't.
But we'll talk a little bit more after the break. Plus, we have, if you're a Redskins fan, as we mentioned, you have a new coach. We'll talk about that after our first break. And some other stories that don't revolve around Dan Casey.
Are we going to talk about this at all after the sports?
Yeah, I think we should. I think because we got it because there's a couple other things that are entertaining that we haven't gotten to yet.
Well, and I want to bring up something that I heard because I monitor other media all the time. So when we get back, I'll also tell you about something wrong I heard on WFIR this morning.
No.
Yeah, on my way into town.
I thought we only criticized the Roanoke Times.
I don't. This isn't willful. When we get back to this, I think somebody just made a mistake, or I don't know what's going on. But we'll talk about it when we come back on News Guardians, Fox Radio 910.
You're watching Valley Vision TV on Comcast Channel 7.
The Valley's place for wings is Wing Boss. Your choice of 12 sauces and our jumbo wings are larger than it be free. See for yourself why we are the big thing in wings. But wings aren't all. There's burgers, barbecue, hot dogs, shrimp, and salads. Our lunch specials are only $6.99 and come with waffle fries and a drink. Located on 460 on the left, 1 mile before Walmart. Dine in or carry out, make it Wing Boss. The big thing in wings. Listen to local, state, and national news live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM. Listen, laugh, and learn as News Guardians Greg and Chip bring you an alternative view of current events and expose lies, deception, and mistakes in the regular media. See what they're talking about 24 hours a day at newsguardians.com and on Facebook at News Guardians. Now the media has a watchdog, and it's your News Guardians. Live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM and at newsguardians.com.
Now open Bent Mountain Bistro, featuring handmade brick oven pizza and our slow-smoked real pit barbecue, farm-fresh salads, sandwiches, and more. Just 15 minutes from Cave Spring Corners. Bent Mountain Bistro. Everything's better on the mountain.
If you would like to sponsor this program or advertise on Valley Vision TV, call us at 540-397-1051 or email to sales@valleyvisiontv.com. Remember, you're watching the Valley's only true local network, Valley Vision TV, Comcast Channel 7.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
We're back, and we're going to take a break from the hard news
Well, it's just kind of, I wouldn't even qualify Dan Casey. We didn't find his story online, though. It wasn't under his blog. It's a news story, which is even more ridiculous, actually.
Which
disqualifies as a news story.
We'll get back into that after we talk about some sports, which I'm enjoying because it's about my team.
So yes, it's an interesting hire. They've hired Tampa Bay offensive coordinator Jay Gruden. Now, you may recognize the last name because his brother is a Super Bowl winning coach.
Oh.
And he's a commentator on ESPN for the NFL, and Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, generally speaking, likes to make splashy hires that'll get them in the newspaper, get people excited, and buy tickets and so on. So this is a little less splashy. However,
like hiring Florida Gators coach a decade ago?
Yes, and other. Well, the worst thing that your coach ever did was firing Marty Schottenheimer. Marty Schottenheimer was the best coach you guys had, and he had a kind of a subpar season, got off to a rough start, turned it around, then fired him. I thought that was a big mistake, because Marty Schottenheimer is probably the best of the, other than Joe Gibbs.
Well, and the fact that we've been through the string of coaches we have, most of which are successful, good, solid coaches
They've been
with
successful
winning
everywhere
records.
else but in Washington.
It leads me to believe, and I know you said this to me a long time ago. Other people have said this to me a long time ago, but I just didn't believe it until now that we've reached the other side of a decade of mess. It's not a coaching problem; it's an ownership problem. That's what we've got going on.
So, people are analyzing this hire, and I think it's just difficult to know because he's done a pretty good job in Cincinnati. I mean, their offense is a lot better, but they have a lot more weapons than the Redskins have. So I think it's kind of one of those things you just have to see how he does. I mean, it certainly won't cost them as much money if they tried to hire some fancy college coach or some big name. So
well, and under the circumstances, with what the coaches are given to work with, and evidently the parameters and the meddling by the ownership, why spend a ton of money on a long-term, successful, record-winning coach? If you're just going to grind him into the ground, you might as well hire a nobody and move on.
Does have a history of, he's an offensive mind. He's worked with quarterbacks and been successful with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. So
I heard a quote that he is excited to be coaching RG3.
Yes, I think RG3 has a lot of potential, and with the right kind of coaching, I think he could be a pretty good player. So
I'd be excited to coach RG3. I don't know that I'd be all that good at it. However, what I'd rather do is kick back, drink a beer, and watch an NFL game with RG3.
I think you're right. He's like an interesting fellow, but I think the best part of this hire is that there was a sort of a dysfunctional relationship between the coach, the quarterback, and the ownership, and I think having the GM have somebody he's comfortable with as the coach will probably help that sort of dysfunctional relationship get better.
And of course, I'm not on the inside. I have no firsthand information to any of this, but just based on reporting and what was going on, it looked to me like our owner, Dan Snyder, was empowering RG3 to thwart the authority of our coach.
That would be the case, and that is something that I was surprised with because RG3 I thought was a savvier guy, but he's young. He's probably made some mistakes. Hopefully they can all put this behind them, because when you've got mixed messages coming out of your organization, it probably is not going to work.
Well, yeah, and when you've got the owner, the guy who writes your check, saying one thing, and the coach saying another,
and the quarterback saying something else.
And what do you you go with the guy who signs the check, right?
I don't like Bill Belichick, but Bill Belichick is probably the best coach in the NFL, and you never hear this garbage coming out of New England. They all shut their mouth, they do their job, and the coach mumbles through his press conferences and says nothing of any value or any meaning. So
you share that opinion with Dan Patrick. I listened to a show the other day where they were talking about Belichick as a coach, and Dan seems to be pretty well set that he's an awesome coach too. If you're unfamiliar with that, Dan Patrick does sports and commentary. Sometimes it's not sports related on his show, and he's on right here on this station, 9:10 a.m. from noon to 3 every day.
He is a good source for information. Now, on the field, this is probably the best weekend of football of the entire year, divisional playoffs. So I'll make my picks.
All right.
So we have the Saints at the Seahawks, first game on Saturday at 4:35 p.m. You can watch that on Fox. And it's going to be in Seattle, which is one of the toughest places to play. And a few weeks ago, the Seahawks just destroyed the Saints by 30 points.
Well, I'm gonna do my picks based on looking at sports through a postmodern politically correct lens. And you've got the Saints on one hand, which are obviously a bunch of hardline, right-wing, Christian, religious zealots, because they're saints. And then you've got the Seahawks, which is nature. It's a bird. So obviously the winner should be the Seahawks.
Well, I'm picking the Seahawks because they have a better team.
Well,
and they're playing at home.
And so am I.
We could use whatever methodology gets you.
So am I, because they're politically correct.
But I think it'll be a much closer game than the last time, because I think your relative likes the Saints. So.
Yeah, and so I'm going to be rooting for the Saints, even though I know it's hateful and evil and wrong, and I'm going to cause the end of the world by rooting for the Saints.
So I'm going with the Seahawks in that one. I'm also the Colts are at the Patriots. This is a trendy pick because the Patriots have a lot of pieces missing. Now the Patriots are obviously, from your perspective, should lose because they're obviously
Patriots conquested the United States, stole the land from the Indians, and created created the single most
I'm sure
money-grubbing, hateful...
has them on a watch list.
So, yeah, you can't have the Patriots winning. The Colts, once again, nature... Horses, wild horses. Oh, absolutely.
Wild horses.
So yeah, Greg's pick based on postmodern political correctness would be the Colts.
Well, I think you're wrong on that one because I think the Patriots will end the Andrew Luck love fest.
Don't mess with PC, dude.
Sorry. Well, your PC is going down. Now on Sunday, the 49ers are going to be at the Panthers. Ric Flair. We talked about it yesterday. Former fan of the Panthers is not going to be at the. It's always sad when Flair has to put out a statement saying he's not going to a football game. But if you caught that yesterday, Ric Flair gave a pep talk to the 49ers the other day, and he's been a spokesperson unofficially and officially for the Panthers. So in Carolina, Ric Flair's name is mud right now.
Wow.
But despite all that, the 49ers are better. Now, the 49ers...
So you're picking the 49ers?
Now, I guess in a politically correct sense, you should go with the Panthers because they're a wild animal, and the 49ers were money-grubbing people trying to get...
Well, yeah, they were horrible human beings who were destroying the environment by trying to mine gold, right? And steal the gold because they wanted to be rich.
49ers, that's almost as offensive as Redskins. I think they probably should change the names.
It's equally as offensive as... Oh, absolutely. We got to get rid of the 49ers. See, I'm picking the Panthers in that one, too.
You're going to have a hard time with this next one. So,
come on.
So this recap, I'm going with the real picks are the Seahawks, the Patriots, the 49ers.
We got 60 seconds.
Chargers and Broncos. Chargers beat the Broncos last time. It won't happen again. The Broncos have had 2 weeks to prepare. Peyton Manning will have his big victory, and I don't think it's going to even be close. So,
all right. Now, this one's easy, too. Chargers and Broncos. I mean, Chargers, right? Electricity?
Well, it's natural electricity, like lightning.
Yeah, but they're not lightning. They're Chargers. And what humans made.
Oh, if you're going to get
yeah, I mean, and if you go Ben Franklin, who was a Patriot, obviously we can't go with the Chargers because they're politically incorrect.
You're going with the Broncos.
Gonna have to go with the Broncos because it's nature. You know, Broncos, wild horses. There's no way.
Well, usually there's a monkey or something that picks the Super Bowl and he does a better job than most prognosticators.
You know, so I'm going to continue this trend, and let's see if the postmodern politically correct pick is.
We'll find out on Monday.
Is right more often than not. We'll be back right after this break. You're listening to the News Guardians. I'm Greg. He's Chip, and don't forget Laura Ingram will be up at 9 o'clock right after us. She's there every day of the week, so stick around for that, and we'll see you on the other side.
You're watching Valley Vision TV on Comcast Channel 7.
Keep the sights and sounds of the Salem Christmas Parade for your very own by ordering the commemorative DVD. Call the Salem Roanoke County Chamber of Commerce, 540-387-0267, and order today.
A little more, and whoa.
Yeah, nice.
Agents, what do we have here?
An Autobotome. I've only heard about these.
And
we can save them hundreds by combining their auto, boat, and home policies, all under Farmers.
Exactly.
Are these legal?
Yeah. No.
We are insurance.
We are Farmers. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum.
Call your local Farmers agent, Trip Godsey, to insure your auto, home, life, and business. Watch the Valley Home Showcase for a quick look at homes for sale in the Roanoke Valley and surrounding areas. Go to thevalleyhomeshowcase.com for showtimes and to watch online. The Valley Home Showcase, now in its 12th great year.
Tune in to Theater of Fright, home of the classics.
Watch the scariest classic horror films on Theater of Fright, Friday and Saturday nights at 9 and midnight on Valley Vision TV, Comcast Channel 7.
This is News Guardian. News Guardian with Greg Aldridge and Chip Tarbutton on WFJX Fox Radio 910.
Darn it, he said our names again.
There he goes. How are we going to hide our identity if Blair keeps saying our names?
I have an official alias.
Yeah.
It's TJ Cornflakes.
What?
That's my official alias, TJ Cornflakes. So I'm going to start signing my posts as TJ Cornflakes.
And when do you use this alias?
It's a secret. He's a secret. He's a shady fellow. So.
Well, if you're just tuning in, The Roanoke Times, Dan Casey of the Roanoke Times, has done a story about us that appeared yesterday on the front page of the Virginia section. We'll talk about that again in a few minutes. But first, we really have to delve into this story about the NBC being guilty of bias, double standards, left-wing hate. You can go to newsguardians.com and see our short commentary on that. And there's a link to this story.
It's pithy, according to Dan Casey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said we were pithy.
From doctoring photos, selectively editing audio transcripts, and outright making up facts to its on-air talent, advocating that someone teach Governor Sarah Palin a lesson by defecating in her mouth, NBC has become an enemy to honest journalism. Oh, remember when they put explosives in that truck?
That was a long time ago.
That was 20 years ago. But
they haven't gotten much better.
It was the shape of things to come. So this story posted on the internet comes from Breitbart, and here's what they have to say. Everyone acted surprised yesterday when we learned that after a couple of disastrous months, MSNBC is defiantly refusing to change their editorial process. But why should they? For years now, MSNBC and NBC News have both become a culture of left-wing hate and fraudulent editing. The only thing that's new, as you'll see below, is the frequency of the fraud and hate is increasing.
Well, my favorite story on there is the 2009 story about where Contessa Brewer used her Photoshop abilities to slice and dice, as they put it, a photograph, so it wouldn't look like a black man attending a tea party carrying a firearm. That was my favorite one, because it was really carefully crafted to show, well, Tea Party people are all evil, gun-toting, crazy white supremacists.
Yeah,
and
bunch of white racists.
Picture of a guy, but they angle and shot and cut and edited it so you couldn't see the guy carrying the gun was black.
Yeah, there's a link to this on newsguardians.com. You'll see the big peacock, and click that, it'll take you to the story, and in that, there's a link so you can see exactly the photograph we're talking about. Number 2 says in May of 2011, MSNBC anchor Ed Schultz referred to conservative talk show radio star Laura Ingraham as a right-wing slut.
Now, he's entitled to his opinion. I mean, he is a commentator on MSNBC, which it makes no bones about their political leanings.
No, and it's fine. The problem here is the double standard. Is they criticize people who say similar things, oftentimes not even that bad, about people that they like, but think that it's okay to then do the same thing. Either it's okay or it's not. You can't have the opinion that it's okay when I do it, but not okay when everybody else does it.
And it's a matter of coverage, too. You know, Bob McDonnell had a little scandal, and he probably deserves the disdain and media attention that he got. Chris Christie's thing is a mess, and, more will probably come out in that soon. But it's amazing the energy that a right-wing scandal will generate when 4 American citizens were killed in Benghazi, and no one seems to really care about that. Or the government has willfully killed 4 U.S. citizens overseas in the name of a war on terror that no one seems to talk about. So all those things don't get talked about.
Or purposefully shipped illegal guns across the border, handed them to drug lords in Mexico that then got used in crimes back in the United States for the express purpose of trying to prove that...
Where's the outrage on those things?
That buying guns in the United States is how drug lords get their guns to commit crime.
But we digress from the story. So
Number 3.
Yes.
In August of 2011, MSNBC anchor Ed Schultz maliciously edited video to make it look as though then presidential candidate Rick Perry had described Barack Obama as a, quote, big black cloud.
It's a big racist weather story.
Number 4. In April of 2012, NBC News maliciously edited a 911 call to make it sound as though George Zimmerman had racially profiled Trayvon Martin.
And that was so obviously painful to watch that go through that process.
We're not even halfway down the list, and I'm wondering why anybody who a reasonable person would pay any attention to anything NBC's news gathering entity has to say. Number 5, in June of 2012, on her MSNBC show, longtime NBC star Andrea Mitchell attempted to manufacture a Romney gaffe with a fraudulent edit. And that reminds me, on MSNBC, it doesn't show up here on this list, but there was also one on Cup of Joe or Morning Joe or whatever that show is.
Yeah, with Joe Scarborough.
Yeah, where they actually just sat there and lied about Mitt Romney and who was his running mate? Gosh,
it's a congressman from.
We're horrible. That's how much we believed in that ticket. At any rate, they tried to make it sound like that people were cheering for the running mate, but were ignoring Mitt by editing out the cheers when Mitt Romney was introduced. And that was all. It was MSNBC. That was Morning Joe. Number 6, in January of 2013, MSNBC fraudulently edited video to make it look as though one of the Sandy Hook parents was heckled by gun rights activists. Because, of course, we need to make people who believe in the Second Amendment look mean and hateful, because it will help their aims at getting rid of gun rights. Number 7, in August of 2013, MSNBC hired rageaholic Alec Baldwin to anchor a weekly show just weeks after the actor took to Twitter to threaten a gay journalist using a series of homophobic tweets. Weeks after being hired, Baldwin was fired after another predictable incident involving the actor hurling anti-gay slurs.
I always find it interesting that Alec Baldwin never seems to have a problem finding work, despite the fact that he has a history of making insensitive comments about homosexuals and, calling his daughter a little pig publicly. I thought that was kind of...
he is reprehensible from left to right and top to bottom. The reason why I think that happens is because he's still talented.
Well,
I mean,
he's in one of my favorite movies of all time, so...
I dislike everything he stands for, but I have to admit that many a movie that he's been in has he acted with flawless character.
He's very funny on Saturday Night Live. He's one of the best co-hosts they have. So, but he's still an reprehensible person.
In number 8, in November of 2013, during what appeared to be a scripted segment, MSNBC anchor Martin Bashir took to the air to suggest someone teach Governor Sarah Palin a lesson by... Can you say this on the radio? I know
defecation is a perfectly...
I said it earlier, but I'm choking on reading that they said it.
Well, that's ironically enough, because it said by defecating in her mouth, I'd choke on that too.
He did eventually apologize and quit.
Yeah, but after they promoted his post. So number 9 was interesting too, where it was recent, where Melissa Harris Perry ridiculed Mitt Romney for having a black...
That was just last week.
Yeah.
And she's having to apologize now. I'm not sure if I believe the apology, but the brazen nature of how these people will treat other people just amazes me.
But it's all just... you don't understand, Greg. You just don't understand how hard it is to be a media person these days.
And finally, in the top 10...
It's Paul Ryan, by the way.
That's right. Paul Ryan. Yeah, because remember doing the Romney-Ryan chant. And they edited the video to make it look like nobody was cheering for Romney. So he got this chant started so that everybody would say his name too. I mean, it was just sick manipulation of the truth. And finally, in the top 10, at number 10, in January of 2014, MSNBC Rachel Maddow went to extraordinary lengths to lie about the Koch brothers backing mandatory drug tests for Florida welfare recipients. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Dan Casey in his ilk have often said that I'm getting money from the Koch brothers. I wish it was true.
Well, if you're going to get accused of it, you might as well get the benefit from it. I mean, no, and that's a criticism that we all, that often run up against is we're just saying these things because we're being paid to by the Kochs or by, Republican donors, by this person, that person. No, we're out beating the pavement for advertisers and sponsors for the work we do and for advertising, to do honest and good work for them, not getting paid by some political funder to say whatever it is they want to say in politics.
Because they certainly wouldn't want us to talk about some of the stuff we talk about from the Republicans.
Honestly, who would pay us to say the stuff that we say? No, I mean, it's not helpful to the Republican Party a lot of the times. It's definitely not helpful to the Democrat Party. I don't see how we could be an asset, or even be blamed or accused of being an asset.
We're an asset to the community, we hope, because we're pointing out things that I think people on both sides of the political aisle can see. Now, somebody likes I got a text message from a friend of mine who was very positive about your way to pick football games.
Oh, my postmodern, political correct football picks, which we're going to continue throughout the rest of the season. And next football season, I think we'll do the same thing. We'll keep track of it.
Wow, it'll be difficult to.
I'm going to pick based on postmodern political
and I'll
correctness.
pick on see who has a better team.
You pick based on trying to come up with really who has the best chance to win, and we'll see who has the best record at the end. I'm looking forward to that. At the end of the year.
Yes, we'll see. I'm doubtful of your technique.
Now,
we haven't made fun of Dan Casey in a while.
Now, as we talked about at the very beginning of the show, if you're just tuning in, there was an article written about News Guardians on the front page of the Virginia section of the Roanoke Times yesterday. Says a lot of things that are just blatantly not true, and you can read our article about that at newsguardians.com. But we'll talk about it more when we come back after this break, right here on.
I've been itching to talk about it all morning.
Fox Radio 910.
You're watching Valley Vision TV on Comcast Channel 7.
Now open Bent Mountain Bistro, featuring handmade brick oven pizza and our slow-smoked real pit barbecue, farm-fresh salads, sandwiches, and more. Just 15 minutes from Cave Spring Corners. Bent Mountain Bistro. Everything's better on the mountain.
Listen to local, state, and national news live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM. Listen, laugh, and learn as News Guardians Greg and Chip bring you an alternative view of current events and expose lies, deception, and mistakes in the regular media. See what they're talking about 24 hours a day at newsguardians.com and on Facebook at News Guardians. Now the media has a watchdog, and it's your News Guardians. Live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM and at newsguardians.com. The Valley's place for wings is Wing Boss. Your choice of 12 sauces, and our jumbo wings are larger than it be free. See for yourself why we are the big thing in wings. But wings aren't all. There's burgers, barbecue, hot dogs, shrimp, and salads. Our lunch specials are only $6.99 and come with waffle fries and a drink. Located on 460 on the left, 1 mile before Walmart. Dine in or carry out, make it Wing Boss. The big thing in wings.
Spunky Bowl of Noodles, bringing you the best that low-budget B-movies have to offer, plus a little something extra, and looking good while doing it, because isn't that all that matters in this world? You have 5 chances to catch Spunky Bowl of Noodles every week. Go to valleyvisiontv.com for showtimes.
If you would like to sponsor this program or advertise on Valley Vision TV, call us at 540-397-1051 or email to sales@valleyvisiontv.com. Remember, you're watching the Valley's only true local network, Valley Vision TV, Comcast Channel 7.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
Did he say her name on that one? I don't think he did.
Did he?
I don't think he did. That's better. We should get him to change that or say TJ Cornflakes, whatever your anonymous name is.
My anonymous name, or alias, which was a DJ name, isn't even all that anonymous because you can Google it.
Yeah,
and find me using my alias.
So we're good. Come up with a new cool name. I got mine, so I don't know what you've been thinking about.
But now that you've said it, how will that work?
Oh shoot. I got to come up with another one.
Welcome back to News Guardians on Fox Radio 910. I'm Greg. He's Chip. We're hiding our identities, so I didn't just say our name.
I'm TJ. He's
TR. According to Dan Casey in the Roanoke Times, Chip and I are biased, and you should never. And why would you want to have somebody with our obvious bias policing the media for bias? And he goes on in his article to accuse us of trying to hide our identities, even though he went to the website, read some of our stories, I guess saw our picture, whatever, because we're not hiding, and contacted us directly and using our name. So while he's claiming that we're trying to hide our identities, he went to the very thing he says we're hidden on and found us. So does that make him a liar or just stupid?
I don't know. I mean, I certainly think if you bought Dan Casey for what he was worth and you sold him for what he thought he was worth, you probably make a tidy profit.
Well, My first experience with Dan Casey was reading an article he wrote about guns and gun control and the Second Amendment. It's been a decade ago at least, and so I contacted him to talk about it, and got nowhere. And his defense after his trying to use non-facts and untruth to defend what he said, he came down to, well, I'm not a journalist, I'm just a columnist. I do commentary.
Which is interesting because the story that he posted on us is in the news section. It's categorized as news.
Yeah, that's why we couldn't find it online earlier. If you were listening earlier, is it's not actually posted on his blog. It's posted under news.
So I'm assuming that he is, as we mentioned in the article, Dan sort of slides back and forth between his acerbic, snarky journalist, commentator, and hardcore, official journalist, very, very seamlessly, which is fine for him. But in his role as a commentator, he can have any opinion he likes and write about it from any perspective he likes. That's what a commentator does. But when you write a hard news article, at least give it an appearance of, because it's obvious his bias is formatting is coming right through his writing.
I'd say even if you're being a journalist, it's okay. What's not okay is to obfuscate the fact that you have bias and try to hide what your true feelings and perspective is, so that people think what they're getting is just straight up factual reporting, when what they're really getting is a subjective view of the facts based on your personal bias. Now, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to many journalists and reporters. They may not even realize they're doing these things. Many of them, I'm sure, are not doing it on purpose. It's just inherent in when you see something, when you come to understand something, when you learn something, everything that you've ever experienced beforehand comes into play in your seeing it, hearing it, understanding it, and then telling other people about it. There's no way around that. It's just the way it is.
Well, and Dan is particularly entertaining to me because one of the things, my first real introduction to Dan Casey was him actually writing something in the paper flattering about me.
Oh yeah, when you were saying something negative, which was absolutely true, but when you were saying something negative about somebody he doesn't like, then
I criticized. I went to a town hall meeting that Bob McDonnell had back in 2010.
Right after he took office.
I was beating up Bob McDonnell before it was cool to beat up Bob McDonnell. Let me just say that.
And you were beating him up for legitimate reasons.
Exactly. So, if you remember, the very first year Bob McDonnell was governor, he was effusive in his self-congratulations about having a budget surplus. And if you looked a little deeper into the budget surplus he was talking about, it didn't exist. It was they basically shuffled money around through the pension system and delaying some payments on some things. You can look at the article, and Dan Casey basically wrote a fairly flattering little piece about me while he beat up Bob McDonnell for doing that. Now, he was right on that issue, and occasionally even a broken clock can be right twice a day. So Dan was right on that issue, but he liked that because I was criticizing somebody that he doesn't like. Now, when I criticize President Obama, using, I would think, a lot of the same criteria, all of a sudden I'm the dopiest person in the world. If I look at Roanoke County and look at their relationship with the organization called ICLEI that, pushes some really, really dopey environmental stuff on the county of Roanoke and talk about that, then I'm the dumbest person in the world. But when I'm supporting something he likes, well, I'm a pretty brilliant guy.
Well, and that's not unusual. And obviously that works. He's employed. I assume he's getting a paycheck, and since they're putting him on the front page of the Virginia section, the Roanoke Times must like him. So obviously being that messed up isn't an obstacle to his career, because he seems to be doing okay.
Well, and the other thing he wanted to criticize us for is the fact that we don't allow comments on the website. And I think it's kind of fun. We have a Facebook page if you want to interact
and
with
there's
us.
a link to the Facebook page on the website.
And honestly, I don't have time
to moderate that.
I mean, it's a full-time job. Now, Dan Casey wants to sit in his office at the Roanoke Times and moderate his discussions between, his 13 supporters in the Roanoke Valley who think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and make fun of people they don't like. and do that back and forth all day, that's fine. I just don't have time to mess with it. If I got an opinion, I have a radio show that I can talk about it on.
Well, and it's not, the purpose there is not to shut off comments, because comments are completely open on the News Guardian's Facebook page. And if we have time, we'll engage. I'll answer questions. I mean, we want that to be an honest, thoughtful, reasonable discussion of these things. We're not in fear of discussing them, but we're also not going to allow people to just come in,
internet trolls to come in and put ridiculous,
say some nonsense, and then refuse to justify it, explain it, or back it up.
While we're off beating the pavement trying to do work and get paid, I haven't got time to monitor every comment that comes in on our website, so we cut off the commentary. I mean,
well, it was never put
section.
on.
Yeah,
I mean,
so it was done purposefully.
There's a Facebook page link at the top of the page. Click the link if you want to talk about one of the stories.
Plus, I've always been of the opinion that if you don't like a radio show, if you don't like a website, no one's put a gun into your head to go click the link or go watch.
No, this isn't.
You could hit the dial on the button, or it's not dial's button, or whatever you use to change the radio station. You can change the radio station and go somewhere else.
Yeah, this isn't like public radio. The government is not forcing you to turn over your money to them so they can give it to us to keep us on the radio. This is if you don't like it, don't listen. If you don't want it, don't pay. This is the bastion of liberty here.
We also have a member section that he wanted to make fun of, but we actually got our first request to be a member yesterday.
Nice. Well, we just started.
We only air for a couple weeks, so it's not like we've been doing this for years.
But I would like to thank Dan. We've gotten a lot of attention, and since his criticisms are inane, silly, and ridiculous, it's been quite beneficial.
Because he proves the point that we make about the media all the time. I mean, the fact that he wants to point that Rasul article as an example, I mean, and he's even too lazy to point out where in that article it doesn't show bias from the Roanoke Times. I mean, he mentions it as an example, but as if it was self-evident that it didn't show bias. If you looked at the picture of the front page and you honestly tell me that somebody at the Roanoke Times didn't realize, well, that would probably help Sam Rasul if we put this picture above the fold.
Well, yeah, he just attacked us. He didn't actually explain or justify what we were bringing up. So, but that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to it. We're big boys. We don't care if somebody criticizes us. We find it fun.
Don't forget, we're the News Guardians. You can read what we've been talking about today on newsguardians.com. We even have an extensive story about what we've just been talking about with the Dan Casey article, also available at newsguardians.com. Tomorrow, the News Guardians Noon Show will be preempted by sports, but we'll be back with you on Monday morning and here every Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock. And I'm Greg, he's Chip, just in case you thought we were trying to hide our identity. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Greg, he's TJ Cornflakes. We are the News Guardians. We're happy to be here with you. Have a fantastic weekend.
Listen to me, because it's just a ride, it's just a ride. No need to run, no need to hide. It'll take you round and round.
You're watching Valley Vision TV on Comcast Channel 7.
Listen to local, state, and national news live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM. Listen, laugh, and learn as News Guardians Greg and Chip bring you an alternative view of current events and expose lies, deception, and mistakes in the regular media. See what they're talking about 24 hours a day at newsguardians.com and on Facebook at News Guardians. Now the media has a watchdog, and it's your News Guardians. Live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM and at newsguardians.com.
Good morning. This is News Guardian Greg here this morning with my co-host Chip. Joining us this morning is Sam Rasul, Democrat candidate in the 11th House of Delegates District in this coming Tuesday's special election. He's running against former Roanoke City Sheriff Octavia Johnson. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
I guess right off the bat, in about 30 seconds, tell our listeners why you should be the next delegate in the 11th District.
You know, I have a strong passion for public policy, and like I tell so many, we may not always agree on the issues, but I want to go to Richmond to work hard for people, and you'll always have my ear.
Very good. Chip?
one of the things we wanted to do was to kind of go through, and to your credit, you've listed a lot of policy positions in your literature and on your website. And one of the issues that struck me was you were calling for a restoration of voting rights and other rights for felons. And that's something that we, in principle, actually kind of agree with you on. But I noticed on the site, is that something for both nonviolent and violent felons, or are you suggesting that we restore rights to all felons at some point?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. I think really the emphasis is on nonviolent felons. Some people that have paid their debt to society that obviously do not represent a present danger. We want to do our best to try to reintegrate them. The big thing is recidivism. Recidivism costs us a lot of tax dollars, and so what we can do to reintegrate people back into society, I think, is a productive thing for everyone.
So you are saying that if you do put legislation or you support legislation in Richmond, if you're elected, you would clarify that it's for non-violent felons, correct?
That's right.
Okay, that's good. Greg, do you have something?
Now, recently, I noticed education is one of the important things on your website. One of the emerging ideas that's been talked about in Virginia is parental choice in education. How do you feel about giving parents back, especially the poorest families, the ability to choose where and how their children will be educated in Virginia?
I think that really undermines the public education process. I believe that when we start shifting students around and shifting tax dollars around even, what happens is you leave some schools in some areas without. So I think that it's important to invest in our school system as equitably as possible. And what that also means is maintaining a stable tax base. So that means that we need to ensure that we maintain the integrity of our school districts. So, I would not be in favor. Certainly, I like to give as much autonomy to the localities as possible, the school boards themselves. But I'm not in favor of wholesale decisions of being able to shift where your child is educated.
How would you answer parents who find themselves in a district, like in Norfolk, for example, which made the news over the summer, where they've not only failed to meet accreditation over and over and over, but the families there don't have the resources. They're too poor to do any other thing for their children. They're stuck in that school. Now the school is getting an enormous amount of funding. I believe it's somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per student that's being paid there. So it's not that that I think that school's underfunded, but from the parents' perspective, they're left without hope. What would you say to that person to make them feel better, or to give them an option that their children could have a good education?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Unfortunately, I don't know all the details around Norfolk and the way that their education system is running. But what I can tell you is that it's not just about funding. Certainly, we need to make sure that the proper funding is there, and hopefully they are receiving the funds that they need. But we are a Commonwealth for a reason. We do need to ensure that proper resources are being allocated there, and the voters there need to make decisions about who's calling the shots in Norfolk. So it's rather unfortunate. I feel as though our schools here in Roanoke City have improved. I'm very pleased with Dr. Bishop and how she has run things, and I hope that we can continue to improve our graduation rates here.
But you don't have to go to Norfolk for those kind of issues. There are still 8 Roanoke City schools that are on warning for not meeting the standards. So, what specifically can you do as a state legislator to support that or make that better?
Yeah, when we talk about these standards, that's confusing in and of itself. I mean, I really think that we're trying to head to a system where we're trying to grade schools and. I've seen states where they have D schools and F schools, and I just really don't agree with that whole system. I think that we, even F schools in Florida have A students, so I think that it's important for us to really focus on each school. The demographics of each school are different. There are different challenges. And so let's try to really appreciate each locality's challenges and ensure that we continue to improve upon some of the growth that we've seen here in Roanoke City.
Well, I guess from a freedom of choice standpoint, I know that for many people, the ability to have the freedom to choose and to have control of your own life and your children and your family. Why is allowing parents the option to choose education for their children not a good idea? Why wouldn't you support that?
Well, I think there's always a balance here between what we take great pride in, our individualism, and then the collective whole. So freedom to choose, that doesn't mean we get to choose everything in our lives. I think that we need to, make sure that we clearly understand that we are part of a society that has school districts, and if we, underfund one school district, unfortunately there are negative repercussions. Those children that are going to that underfunded school are going to become our neighbors one day. They're going to be friends of our children. So we just need to make sure that resources are distributed as justly as possible.
Well, is the goal there, I guess, equity of funding in schools, or the actual education that the children are getting? I mean, because they would be able to choose to go to a different school if the funding inequity that you talk about ended up being a case. It's not like they're trapped there.
Right. Just to clarify, I mean, the slippery slope here, I'll use Louisiana as an example. I mean, they've got a voucher system where people can take their students right out of the schools. Unfortunately, what we see is a huge disparity in what is happening in the schools there, and it's rather unfortunate that there are so many schools that are severely underfunded. It's a slippery slope. So my point is that members of our community are members of our community. They're going to be your neighbors. They're your friends. They're people that work with you and with your family members. We just need to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity at a fair education.
Okay, let's move on to one of the issues you talk about is the what you see as a differentiation between lower pay for women for the same amount of work. And, generally speaking, when legislation is put forward, it's to address a specific issue. So I hear about this pay equity issue, but I wanted to know if you have any specific examples of companies or individuals in this area that are suffering because of pay discrimination.
Yeah, I don't myself. What I do know is that nationally, I think it's around 78 cents on the dollar. We just need to make sure that from when we do put workplace discrimination laws in place, that it does address this issue. But more importantly, that's the legislative side. On the executive side, we've got to make sure that there are teeth to go in and enforce that. All we want is to just end discrimination on so many levels, and obviously that is still one that is very evident in society, that women are not paid the same as men, and here in Virginia we should be doing our part to ensure that doesn't
What if
happen.
the 77 or 78%? Because you're correct, that is the correct statistic. I believe it's 77%. What if it was shown that choices people make cause the pay equity distribution? For example, my wife decided not to work for 8 years and stay home and then went back into the workforce. So that would obviously have a negative impact on her earning potential. Some women choose to work part-time. If that was the cause of the 77% statistic and not discrimination, or so you're saying that 23% differentiation is all caused by discrimination. If that was true, it would seem to me there would be a lot of wholesale cases of discrimination against women who aren't getting paid equitably to men. So I would think if that was true, there would be specific cases. How would you answer that question?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think that what's important to understand is, first and foremost, all salaries are not publicly disclosed, so we don't have a great way here, even locally, to be able to gauge that, which is important. Secondly, we should look at the methodology of these studies, because I think that I believe that they're trying to compare apples to apples, and not so much just, you know, a woman with X number of years in this position versus a man with X number of years in that position. So hopefully they're comparing apples to apples.
Listen to local, state, and national news live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM. Listen, laugh, and learn as News Guardians Greg and Chip bring you an alternative view of current events and expose lies, deception, and mistakes in the regular media. See what they're talking about 24 hours a day at newsguardians.com and on Facebook at News Guardians. Now the media has a watchdog, and it's your News Guardians. Live weekday mornings at 8 on Fox Radio 910 AM and at newsguardians.com.